welcome to Eight of Cups Tarot. Welcome to your mid-month update. I just kind of wanted to do a bonus reading for you guys because the audio was so horrible on your readings this month. Definitely a victim of my retrograde Mercury energy, and for that I apologize. Hopefully, if you were not able to listen to that, and I certainly don't blame you, hopefully this can kind of steer you in the right direction. Now, today, the day that I'm filming this, is February the 16th. So again, this energy should last about the next month. And this next month is pretty action-packed. You know, the next couple of weeks until, after the first week in March, we are still really in this preparatory energy with this first Saturn-Uranus square. Now, I say that it's preparatory because it is the first of 3 squares. So this is kind of just the beginning of the story, and it's kind of important for you to keep that in mind. Rome was not built in a day, and neither was this transit. Little by little, we are going to seek freedom from some of the things that we have felt has held us back. And it's not an easy task. There's a lot that needs to change mentally. There's a lot that needs to change physically. The universe has to catch up with our vibration. And there's just a lot going on. And so 2021 is a year where we are allowed to change. But it's not overnight change because Saturn is involved. So anything that we think we can quickly fix or heal or make right is probably going to actually take a lot of time. It might be kind of painstaking activities, having to get down to the details, do the stuff we don't really like to do, balance the checkbooks, organize, file, go through the attic, clean out the junk drawers, and it's a strengthening period. The Uranus energy can make things feel chaotic, and it could also make things feel urgent. But I feel as though the day after this big square on the 18th, the sun moves into Pisces, and soon to follow is Venus and Mercury, and we start to move into softer territory. Now, it also means that things are starting to move into your 12th house, the house of the undoing, of the surrendering. And I feel like this is just a time of reprieve for my Aries. Now, I see this King of Swords in the first card out in the 9-card block, and I get the feeling that you are stepping into that Aquarius energy. Aquarius is your 11th house, and it talks about growth and expansion. Where are you expanding your life? Where are you hoping that, to lift the horizons a little, to break through those glass ceilings? Because right here in the center we have the Empress. There's definitely an element of attraction. And I don't know, for some of you, maybe the Empress energy is sort of the goal. Maybe for some of you, Aries, there is a particular person with the Empress-like qualities in your life already. And if that is the case, there is probably an element of healing, inviting things in. And the star indicates our wishes, and it indicates that a situation has hope. But you being the King of Swords feels immensely emotionally detached. And I see this Empress, this warmth kind of tucked between these two colder cards. And the King of Swords energy is not emotionally attached. It's not emotionally involved. And that's usually a good thing, If we can kind of see the bigger picture, take a step back, not always be so ruled by our emotions. we make wiser decisions, right? There's also an element of expectations with that King of Swords. The King of Swords can be a little bit stubborn, fixed energy. And that Empress energy, also fixed Taurus, Venusian energy, might be two people with the best of intentions, but maybe still not quite on the same path, not quite on the same page. There's always an awkwardness with the Star card. There's a sense of not knowing if you fit, if you quite belong. Maybe there are elements within this King of Swords, because he is emotionally detached, that this Empress is kind of in this protective mode. Now, I say that because directly under the Empress is the Moon. And maybe you're trying to figure this out, Aries. Maybe this is something that you're trying to kind of understand what's going on with this Empress energy, because she has a lot of independence. She has a lot of... She just simply doesn't need. That Empress energy doesn't require anybody else. She's not waiting for anybody to decide if they want to stay or go. And she seems so stable and so strong. And yet this Moon and the Six of Cups tells me that there's just a lot more to this story. I think there's a lot more to this Empress's feelings. There's a lot more emotions than maybe what meets the eye. And there's an element of projection. Maybe you are protecting yourself in this King of Swords energy, and the Empress is therefore coming off super independent, like she's fine if you are not invested in some way. And yet again, it just feels as though there is so much more to this story. And I get that from a lot of these cards. If you look at the Star card, the Moon card, and the High Priestess card, all having a quality of surprises, as well as this Page of Cups with the fish kind of inside of the cup. An element of surprise. In the Six of Cups, there are flowers that are growing within each cup, an element of abundance that maybe you did not know was there. Now, we have this bring love into the situation, new moon in Aquarius. And the thing that I like about this Aquarius energy, the thing that I like about the Star and this card together, along with this Trust card here, and the High Priestess, is that it tells me that you're starting to accept yourself, accept the situations for what they are, accept... There's something about the acceptance of time within these cards. And it feels as though as you take a step back, as you start to reframe things in this King of Swords energy, a lot more within this Empress starts to grow. Bring love into the situation, new moon in Aquarius, right next to the Page of Swords, which indicates some form of communication. Now, Mercury starts to move direct at the end of this week, telling me that between the end of this week and the first to second week in March, Mercury is moving direct, and yet it's still covering old territory, inviting us to say those things we didn't say, inviting us to have those conversations we were avoiding. And there's elements of truth, there's elements of clarity. There's also an element of courage coming from this Page of Swords, almost as if the King of Swords has to swallow his pride a little bit, put himself in more of a vulnerable place. And therefore, when that happens, when that King of Swords energy is able to retrieve and is able to be more vulnerable, riskier, braver in the way that he communicates, I think that's exactly what is reflected back from this Moon card. Maybe there is something that you are hoping for, and yet not a whole lot of faith. Maybe there's like this thing that you're deeply wishing for, and yet you kind of know for all practical purposes that most likely it will not occur. Trust. I accept that my inner voice will always guide me correctly. The High Priestess, the Page of Swords, the King of Swords. All indicators that you are beginning to listen to your higher self, beginning to listen to your intuition, beginning to trust the process. And I think bringing love into this situation is all about that self-love, that respect, that radical self-acceptance for who you are and for where you are right now. Like I said, this Uranus-Saturn square can show us all the ways that we want everything to be different. Yet it's just not time for it to happen. And it's finding out that the process might take a little bit longer, and it's about how you frame that. Now the Moon card and the Six of Cups, all underneath this Empress energy, there is so much ripeness here. There is so much emotion and depth that is coming to the surface, and yet it is controlled. I like the Empress because she always has respect for herself, right? Like, this isn't somebody who's going to act out abruptly. She's not just going to kind of like emotionally say all the things. You know, it's very controlled and it's very confident in the Empress mode. And it's just a knowing what you deserve, knowing your value and what you bring to the table. Maybe there is a situation that you are in which you are beginning to recognize the value of that as well. Maybe there is something that you weren't quite expecting to feel, something that you weren't quite expecting to experience. The Moon card could mean that it's kind of confusing at the time. No, we didn't really expect this. Uranus energy is all about the unexpected. And the Star card is our ability to adapt to it, our ability to understand it. And to me, this whole center row here is all about saying and doing those things we weren't brave enough to do before. It's almost as if time is doing you some kind of a favor. The ability to look at things differently, the ability to understand yourself better, to know yourself better. And this final line down here, trust, next to the High Priestess, next to my Six of Cups card, which is always my card of destiny. Destined soul contracts, people that are meant to come together. And right next to these two cards is the Eight of Wands, which is a promise of communication, a promise of forward movement, of advancement, of understanding. And it's all about understanding on an emotional level, understanding other people's feelings, understanding the intentions behind it. Now, what I can tell you, because there's a Page of Cups here and I see a bad spirit, a rebirth assured, it's almost as if there's a part of you that you left behind in the past that is coming to the surface. Like I said, there's a rebirth. Maybe there are feelings you begin to realize you have for somebody you didn't expect. Maybe there's somebody from your past that creeps back in. Maybe there's somebody who you thought things were different now. And yet there's still a kindling. There's still some feelings below the surface. And the universe is going to force those things out, right? Going to bring that all to the surface for healing. It's all about cleaning the slate to move forward with the energy. I say that because these cards all came out kind of stuck together here. Card number 39, the Moth Spirit, surrender now. With the Bat Spirit, a rebirth is assured. Whatever it is that you're trying to control or whatever you're being stubborn about, and I certainly would be very careful about saying, oh, I would never do this, or oh, I would never do that, or that would never happen, or I'd never talk to that person. You know, careful what you say. Uranus can be really, really tricky. And because there's this Page of Swords here, could be sudden and unexpected. And sometimes when I see this Page of Cups here with that fish in the cup, it might not be the thing that you were hoping for particularly. Might not be the way you thought it would all happen. And the Moth Spirit card is always indicating that you've got to let go of the house. How's it going to happen? How's it going to play out? How am I going to afford it, you know? How's the universe going to work out? And the details aren't important. The ifs and who's, what's, and whys, just not where it's at this month. And there's something there that's such a beautiful evolution between this Bat Spirit and this Elephant Spirit. Learn from the past. If there is something that you regret about a past situation, maybe even completely unrelated to this one. Maybe you regret letting somebody go because you weren't brave enough to say the things that you wanted to say. Maybe now is another karmic play. It may not be with that same person, and yet the situation might feel similar. You may want to take those situations into account when you think about where things are going next for you and what you want for yourself. And I think the overall energy for you is that the more you are willing to open up, the more honest you are, because these swords are kind of all about honesty. The High Priestess, the Moon card, it's all about honesty, a clean slate, about being authentic, about who you are, about what you need. There are elements of truth that have to come out in order for things to be forgiven so everybody could move on. It is way more productive than being stuck and stagnant in regret and remorse. And there's just so much that can happen in the next few months with all of these planets that will be moving direct for almost 2 solid months before any retrogrades, and the progress that we can make in that time. If we are willing to surrender, you will not regret. But we have to allow the change to occur within us, within our life, within our surroundings. There's elements of our past that we have to let go of so we could step into the new. It is a process this month that isn't easy, Aries, but it's going to lead you to some really cool places. It's all within the divinity and the timing this month. All right, Aries. I will be back very soon with your March readings. Oh my gosh. Until then, take care and have a wonderful couple of weeks. Bye, guys.